First of all, welcome to A Deeper Look. This is a new series on the Popcorn Lobotomy channel. Trying something new, trying something a little bit more off the cuff, a little bit more in-depth, hence the term A Deeper Look. And I'm going to be terrible at it. So, if your bar is up here or even here, I would set it a lot lower than both of those. Perhaps around the groin area, which is pretty much where my mind usually ends up one way or the other. This episode, we're going to be talking about the Matrix and the concept of, are we in a simulation? I assume you guys remember the Matrix. It looks a little bit like this. This is actually the original trailer, apparently, which is kind of interesting because I can't imagine this is how I would sell it. But it's sold on the basis of, you're trapped in a hamster wheel of life or whatever, and something about breaking out, which I guess essentially that is what the movie's about. But it's a little bit more than that. They kind of skip over the idea that we're living in a simulation. So what is the message of the Matrix, though? I look at it and go, well, I don't know what it's trying to say, really. Is it saying we're all batteries? I guess in a sense that kind of philosophically makes sense in the way that we submit to labor for wealth and opportunity and so on, for our basic needs. So you could look at that as an exchange of energy and say, yeah, we're all batteries. Is that what it's saying? Well, yeah, it specifically says we are batteries. So that is part of the message, but is it really what you come away with? Is it like the underlying message? That's really the surface message. So is it saying that life's an illusion? That it's not all real? Well, no, not really. It says there's a real world, and there's this fictional concept that real world was replaced at a certain point by robots. It's so far in the future that it's not something I think we're supposed to relate to. We're just supposed to, enjoy it as a concept. Or perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's a warning about AI in the future. Obviously, we've had plenty of movies warning about the power of AI and where that might lead us. The Matrix joins a long list of movies just doing that same message. Beware the fucking robots, they'll take over. Is that the main message? Not really. In fact, it's kind of, despite all of its philosophical allegory and biblical references, religious references and so on, the underlying message of the Matrix, in my head at least, is a bit of a mess, a bit of a hodgepodge. I don't really get a clear, concise, succinct message out of it. We're seeing a trend in science, in popular culture, in lots of areas of life at the moment, speaking about how the Matrix is actually a real concept and applying it to our real lives. So what starts as a fictional movie, somehow, I guess 20 years down the track, is now a plausible, quite reasonable theory for how our life really works. One of the people who talks about the Matrix, in a sense, not in a sense, quite specifically, very deliberately talks about the Matrix, is David Icke, one of our favorite conspiracy theories. Here's what David Icke has to say about the world being holographic.
This world is actually holographic. And a hologram is not solid, it's not physical, it's illusory solid, and it's illusory three-dimensional. Now, once you're dealing with something that's holographic, something that is a projection, you're no longer dealing with someone getting the metal and the stuff and all the rest of it and making a moon. Because it's a projection. It's a holographic projection.
So the moon isn't real?
No. Well, none of it's real, really, because it's all a projection. But
is the universe a projection?
Yes, it is. And that's what these scientific teams in Bonn and America have come to the conclusion
of. So who's projecting the projection?
Well, I mean, you can keep going on and keep going on, and that's why I keep going on. And these are the questions we need to understand.
So David Icke believes that the world is a projection. And you might say, well, David Icke, the crazy conspiracy theorist, he's just using that to justify some of his crazy conspiracy theories, because if he can establish that the world is not real, then he can tell you that reptilians exist, or he can tell you that he was a successful soccer star. Sorry, he probably was. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sorry, David Icke. I apologize. But he could tell you pretty much anything. And under that theory of everything, I guess you could call it, there is really nothing off the table. But it's not all crazy people who are talking about this. And, David Icke mentioned science also in the same breath as saying, the moon is not real. Let's not get into that. However, he says that mainstream science is starting to back him up. And if you have a look around, it doesn't take long to find mainstream science. I guess I wouldn't necessarily consider Bill Nye mainstream science. He's not even a scientist, apparently. He's an engineer. But he's a celebrity who's speaking out on this issue and has a point of view. Let's have a listen.
Are we actually part of a giant simulation? I don't think you can know. I think you can argue that whoever has written the simulation, whatever super entity has written the simulation, could make it so sophisticated that even your memories are a result of being programmed by the simulator or simulatrix. So the question is at some level irrelevant, but at another level, I think we would have to agree it's unknowable. You can just presume any level of sophistication that makes it undetectable to us.
Bill Nye, absolutely 100% expert on this topic, and someone that I think we can really, really trust. However, he's not alone. There's plenty of other people who are talking about this idea that the world is a simulation. Have a look at Elon Musk. Here's what he has to say on it.
40 years ago, we had Pong, like 2 rectangles and a dot. That was what games were. Now, 40 years later, we have photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, and it's getting better every year. And soon we'll have virtual reality, we'll have augmented reality. If you assume any rate of improvement at all, then the games will become indistinguishable from reality. Just indistinguishable. Even if that rate of advancement drops by 1,000 from what it is right now, then you just say, okay, well, let's imagine it's 10,000 years in the future, which is nothing in the evolutionary scale. So given that we're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality, and those games could be played on any set-top box or on a PC or whatever, and there would probably be, billions of such, computers or set-top boxes, it would seem to follow that the odds that we're in base reality is 1 in billions.
So he's talking about base reality there. So as if not only could we be in a simulation, but we could be a simulation inside a simulation, inside a simulation, up until, I guess, an upper limit of infinity. And it's not just Elon Musk. Bank of America thinks there's a 50% chance we're living in a matrix too. Of course, they quote Elon Musk, but they also have other sources that contribute to that. But they sent this out to their actual customers, this like white paper that they created. Why Bank of America have anything to say about whether we're living in a simulated reality or not, I have no idea. But it's something I think we should explore. BBC also have a article. I'm sure if you search, you'll find thousands of others. The interesting thing about the BBC article is it mentions David Cronenberg's Videodrome movie and Terry Gilliam's Brazil as examples of other movies that have explored this idea. However, I don't remember Brazil being set in an alternative reality. I think it wasn't his fantasy or his dream or something like that. I don't know, it's been a while since I watched it. And Videodrome's about things coming out of a television. I don't know. Again, I think I need to watch it again. Maybe I should have watched it before I started recording. Oh God, I'm so ill-informed. But the point of this is not to be informed, but to just ask questions and start a dialogue with you guys so that we can try and find a truth together. Or maybe just troll each other and argue on the internet. Either way, it's all fun.
Steve Jobs owns a PC.
What the f*** did you say? I will f***ing kill you, you piece of shit!
There was this story from the New Yorker about the Oscars and how, for some reason, they seem to think that the fact that the Oscar was announced incorrectly indicates that we're living in a matrix. Like if you see the same cat walk past twice, apparently this is one of those things. This is not something new. This is something that, several thinkers and philosophers and so on over the past few centuries have been talking about. It's an idea that, I guess, is as intrinsic to human curiosity as the question, why do I exist? Or what is my purpose? Or why is the sky blue?
Why am I here?
This article in the New Yorker actually states that perhaps the fact that the Oscar was read incorrectly is a glitch in the Matrix, and that whoever's running the simulation just, is just starting to screw up, or maybe, there's some bugs in the system or whatever, and that's why the world is so crazy all of a sudden. But I don't know. I look at this and I think, well, okay, putting David Icke aside, these are mainstream sources. These are establishment sources. The New Yorker, Bank of America. I mean, we know banks run the world, right? We do know this, don't we? I think we know this. BBC, Elon Musk, very, very mainstream celebrity. And Bill Nye, the fucking science guy, yeah, a little bit of a mainstream celebrity. He's certainly more celebrity than scientist. However, he's out there saying it. The question is why? Why are these people putting this idea out there? Why now? Why in a world when terrorism is the boogeyman, or North Korea is going crazy and going to bomb us all? In a world where we're being taught to be afraid of pretty much anyone with whom we can establish a difference skin color, different country, different borders, different religions. We're just being taught fear on every corner. Is this simulation idea something to fear? In some ways, I guess it is. In other ways, it's not. In some ways, it gives people a sense of hope. It gives people a belief that the existence that we live now is not the end of it, and that perhaps beyond this, there is something that may be better. Let's have a listen to this little piece from James Corbett on learned helplessness as a basis to try and work out what is the purpose of putting out a message about a simulated reality.
You can restrain a 10,000-pound adult elephant with a puny little rope, not because the elephant can't break the rope, but because they have been trained since birth with heavy chains, tying them up since the time they were very small, that they can't break free of their harness, so that when they actually get big enough that they could quite easily do it, they don't even try to do it. This is, again, a very, very common thing among many different species, and of course, humans fundamentally no different. We can be trained into what this is called learned helplessness, and we can be trained into that by simply being in situations where nothing we do seems to actually affect anything. We have a lever, but it does absolutely nothing. And I think that's a perfect model for what happens in our representative democracies, where basically we have the lever of the voting booth, and it does absolutely nothing.
So James Corbett's there talking about learned helplessness. Does the concept of a computer simulation cause learned helplessness? It's an interesting question. Is it something that actually makes us think there is no point to changing this world? Well, if we're living in a simulation, then yeah, I guess it does. What would be the point in changing a world that's a simulation? You would just either find a way to break out of it so you can go and live in reality, or you would just wait, and I guess when you die, they'll just pull you off, just whack off your... No, not whack off. That means masturbation. They'll just pull off your VR goggles and, you'll be back to whatever normal is, whatever the real world is. Or perhaps you'll just be in another level of simulation and you just have to do the same thing in that one. So there's really not any point in doing anything if you believe that the world is a simulation. So in a way, yes, this concept is contributing to the idea of learned helplessness. This idea that no matter what goes on in the world, whether you agree with what the powers that be are doing, or that whether you believe that you would prefer change, any action you take is completely meaningless. And I think that's where the danger is in this concept. And I've had this sort of discussion with a lot of people, religious people, people who believe in psychedelic drugs, people who think that somehow there's this other world that we can escape to. The fact is, it's really just the same thing that religions have been promising us for generations. Christianity and eternal life, reincarnation, or in the case of Hinduism, the cessation of the endless cycle of reincarnation. Apparently, that's something that's promised if you achieve enlightenment. Self-actualization or ultimate wisdom, ascension. The New Age religion seems to be pushing this idea of ascension, which means we'll rise up to be, higher dimensional beings. Hey, becoming a god yourself. I believe that's the Luciferian doctrine. And of course, I guess Islam, I'm not sure, 72 virgins or whatever. Whatever it is, I really need to learn a lot more about Islam. Some people see these as inspirational ideas, but I don't think that believing that what you do in this world doesn't matter, or at least is a step behind another superior reality, I don't think that's a healthy thought at all. I think anything that encourages us to not be aware and engaged and present in the reality in which we were born, the only reality that we can actually 100% prove does exist, I think that would be an unhealthy philosophy to live under. And even the small things that you do in life are important. Just something as simple as just, reaching out and putting your hand on the shoulder of a friend who's grieving, or choosing to love someone despite their flaws instead of rejecting them. Going out and protesting wars and injustices, however you see fit. Voting. Actually, no, probably not voting. But the little things that you do in life, the things that affect other people and then cause a butterfly effect. It would be dangerous to think these things are not significant. What we do in this world does matter, and it is important. And even if there is some other world beyond that, deal with it when you get there. Don't assume that the actions that you take in the world now are going to be affected by that, or vice versa. And, I don't know, be good to each other. That's all I wanted to say, really. Don't be escaping all the time. Be present, be involved, love your world, love your reality, and forget the idea of this simulation, because it's probably garbage. Righto, I've said my piece. Now it's over to you guys. Leave a comment below. Let us know if you believe we are living in a simulation, if the Matrix is real, or if it's just a bunch of bullshit causing learned helplessness around the world. Give us a like, give us a sub, all of that stuff. Anything would be appreciated. Share the video if you can, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.